You know, for the past 5 policies or maybe 10 policies, the governor has been saying when he makes an assessment of the economy that we are at capacity utilization of 74 or 75, close to the long-term average. Soumya, your thoughts? I mean, it should have triggered, isn't it? Capex, but the growth, I think, is largely retail growth. We see a loan growth of 16%, which is an improvement over the 8% that we had 2 years ago, but it looks like largely retail-led.
No, I think the story on the retail is well taken, but in terms of a private investment, as Bhanumurthy was pointing out, I think there has been a revival in private investment. For example, if I look into our bank's pipeline in terms of the sanctions which are in pipeline, I think they are quite healthy. And there are several sectors which are actually new age sectors. So that actually takes time for the private investment to kick in. One of the examples is data centers. So that is one area which has been, other is renewables. So these are all forcible, and there are also other sectors like battery, electronic vehicles, so chemicals. So some of these sectors are actually new age or sunrise sectors. So whenever a private investment would like to come in, it may take a little time to gauge it. But my sense is that given this and given the spate of announcements which has happened in the last year, if you look into some of the reports which are available in public domain in terms of investment announcements, and even if 35 to 40% of that is realized, that gives you a healthy figure. The second point is that there is a very interesting story behind this investment. If you break up India's public and private investment, the data for which is available till 22, 23 data will be available in January when the CSO releases the data, you will find that the most interesting aspect of the investment is that it's the institution, the public sector institution, which has been actually lacking in terms of the investment. And that has been a significant laggard. In the last 1 year, that has picked up. And my sense is that once that picks up, if I look into just incremental share of the investment, not the other percentage of GDP, I think that is one thing which could be driving up the overall investment climate. So my sense is that first, yes, private investment has started to come, but it will take time because there are sunrise sectors which takes time. Second is that it's the institutions and not the government. Government is driving it.
So PSUs have not been as active as the government.
As active as they should have been.
Okay. Shamika, any thoughts on that from a policymakers? I mean, is there a worry that the government has done its bit? And this year, even the state capex has picked up. But we're not seeing the private capex of the kind that we have seen in the first decade of this century, or of the thing that we would like it to be?
I think it's a matter of time, Latha, because the general mood is upbeat. And unlike, if you look at the IMF data over the last 40, 50 years, unlike elsewhere, usually government capex has a crowding in impact in India of private, right? Unlike elsewhere where we are often worried that when government spends more, there is less available for private. But here, I think it's a matter of, again, I'll go back to the last 10 years, because we've had such a sustained period, right? From the coal allocations to the retrospective tax. I think private sector has been through a lot.
Yes.
And then, of course, the pandemic. I mean, I think it's a matter of we shouldn't get discouraged. But the point is, if you just look at the last few quarters, we are sensing a turnaround. Now, some of it could be self-financed, maybe it's not coming to the banks, but there is a turnaround. Look, the magnitude could be different.
We will have to see the fisc pull back. I mean, this is a jolly good number, 7.2%. It's better than, the most optimistic estimates I got when I was doing my poll, way better than what one would assume is a conservative estimate from a conservative central bank. 6.5% was their forecast. And we've done 7.2, but we have to accept that there are steroids, a 9% fiscal deficit. We also must accept that the US, the same quarter, grew by 5.2%. I think now it's scaled down to 4.9. But nevertheless, it's an extraordinary performance that has helped. Now, if the fisc pulls back, what would your worry be? And Lekha, should the fisc pull back? Because the US is challenging even that orthodoxy.
Yeah, thank you. Should not pull back. Fiscal policy should remain accommodative. Because, there is no worry about the investors' confidence at all. we have fiscal deficit high, we have debt very high. But the clear narrative is it is linked to the capex formation. So I think there is investors' confidence over there, as long as we get this narrative correct. So that's what I feel. But if we pull back the fiscal policy, of course the interest rate is mounting, our public debt is mounting, but if we do that, the repercussions will be severe. It will have negative growth consequences.
I must say that you've infused fire into the conversation.
Yeah, it should
That's
keep
against all orthodoxy to say that 9% fiscal deficit is not enough. Let's go for more.
Absolutely. How you keep the narrative strong is what matters. Let deficit be good, because a timely deficit is good.
Mr. Khara, another 9% announced, or in fact, Lekha wants it more. So let us assume there is another 6% vote on account fiscal deficit. Would you think that interest rates won't rise?
We'll have to look at the quality of the deficit also. It's not merely the deficit. For what purpose the deficit is. So that I think that will be the guiding factor when it comes to the interest rate movements.
I want everyone's comment. Yes, Professor Bhanumurthy.
I think the discussion seems to be on the headline fiscal deficit. But I think one thing that happened good for this country for the past 4 or 5 years is in improving the quality of expenditure.
Absolutely.
I think the headline fiscal deficit need not be a center of discussion for all of us. I think it is the revenue deficit. No, revenue deficit, you want to have 3% or 0%. I think that the discussion should be on that rather than talking about the fiscal deficit. But I think, in my view, we have seen great period in between 2003 and 2007, and I think that all happened because of bringing down the revenue deficit to zero. So I think we need to talk about whether we need to go back to the original FRBM Act of 2003 or the amended act which is in 2018, which has actually messed up the whole fiscal math. So I think we need to really see whether you need to improve the quality of expenditure or you want to put the money into the drain.
No, I take your point. Where the money is spent would obviously determine whether it is inflationary or not. But per se, Lekha and Shamika are propagating a fisc-led expenditure or...
No. Latha, see, that's what I'm trying to tell you, that our view of the world, at least the way we, and I don't, again, we look at the real economy, Latha. And we are very interested in basically, in fact, that's why I mentioned this report, that you have to look at the expenditure, the non-development expenditure. You're in a democracy where electoral pressures are leading to all kinds of announcements, whether you want to call it freebie or whatever, it's a choice of word. But you always have that risk. And therefore, the nature of the spending, and that's why I said that non-development spending, whether the kind of borrowing, and if Kerala is knocking the doors of Supreme Court today, we really have to be worried. Why do I say that? Because Kerala's capital outlay has been below average for a very long number of. Their borrowing has been twice the national average for a very long. The pension burden has been exorbitant, right? So these are, how on earth are we going, if we only keep ourselves, if we treat public finance as a mechanical exercise, I'm sorry, that is a very, very myopic way to look. Maybe it makes better news, but no, for the economy it is terrible. Because you have to look at the disease, not just the symptoms.
Let me bring the reason why the freebies exist in first place. Is there a K-shaped recovery, Dr. Bhanumurthy? And therefore necessitating that even the central government is giving 80 crore families, 5 kilos of free grain. So that is telling you something about the pain that the government is able to see. And the political leadership should be trusted to keep its finger on the right pulse if they are telling you that. So is private capex not investing simply because there isn't purchasing power at a larger level? Would you worry about K-shaped recovery as an economic challenge?
Yeah, I think right now, we have talking about, fastest growing large economy in the world. But on the other hand, we are talking about when it comes to health and nutrition, we are very far away from many countries. I think there is a gap between the growth as well as some of the social sector. And I think there is certainly a pressure on the government to focus more on this particular issue. If you look at what happened in Madhya Pradesh, the kind of scheme that have come up, how that kind of support that schemes have been given by the people, clearly suggests that there is a large role for intervention. And you're right. I think there is a kind of K-shaped recovery. I think maybe some parts of the sector economy is actually growing much faster compared to other sectors. I think we need to have, we need to focus on that particular sector also. And that's where the whole public policy things come up.
Let's come to the other challenge, which is staring us in the face and which, even Dr. Chakraborty spoke about the climate challenge. In the first place, should we believe that climate is reducing potential growth globally, reducing trade globally? Professor Seal, would you think that it is as bad as that?
It is bad, definitely, and if not, whether it has already reduced or not, it is definitely going to reduce, because and we are one country, definitely we are affected by, very much affected by the climate change. And it's winter, there are flood in Tamil Nadu. Okay, so and till we depend a lot on agriculture. So we cannot deny this fact that our agriculture is very much affected by the climate. So unless we do something, and it is not only India, it is all over the world, and unless we do something, to my mind 2070 is a long time, definitely. So we have policymakers who can throw some light on this, and definitely climate change is going to affect international trade. Okay.
As a macroeconomist, sir, would you say that it's already hurting potential growth? I mean, both India and global?
Yeah, I think there are some studies that have come up even during the COP28 discussion also. The climate change has actually, reduced GDP growth in countries like India, emerging market economies, by something like 2 percentage points. So I think it looks like alarming, but the way things are happening in the world, particularly if you look at what's happening in Europe and other countries, I think it's for real now. I think we need to really, and I mean, as Chief Economic Advisor pointed out, we're already into that game. So we're already started contributing to that whole debate and also contributing to how to reduce that adverse impacts. So I think that needs to be part and parcel of the whole macro policies right now.